I have the pleasure of introducing Melinda Pleasant as our guest speaker tonight. I had the pleasure of meeting her when my wife and I went down to Galveston to do the philatelic appraisal of the Moody Family Papers business records. And Melinda presently is the archivist for that a group of records at the Rosenberg Library. Some background, Melinda started her professional career as a teacher in Sabine Parish, Louisiana. She then gained additional certification to become a school librarian, in total spending 15 years in the public school system. She then moved to Texas. There you go. And she left the classroom to raise her children, and to earn advanced degrees. She has since worked as a librarian in 2 Texas public libraries and as a circulation manager at Tarleton State University Library on the Fort Worth campus. She has been archivist for the Rosenberg Library since January of this year, and now feels she has found her life's calling. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Education from Northwestern State University, and she really brings this responsibility, a unique perspective to her work in preserving and organizing historical documents. She has a Master of Science in Library Science and graduate academic certificate in archival management from the University of North Texas. This provided her with the necessary skills and knowledge to manage and maintain the Moody family collection. Wonderful background for the responsibilities that she has at the Rosenberg Library, and I'd like to pass this on, this presentation on now to Ms. Pleasant. Here we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay. All right, well, I'd like to welcome everyone to my presentation. I know you're going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed getting it together for you. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight and share with you what I'm very passionate about. I feel like this job has been, it's actually a unicorn. It's one of those things that just doesn't ever happen, except it did. So it's amazing. And it is a rather large collection for a first-time archivist, but I'm enjoying every minute of it. So here you can see there is, this is actually a reproduction of a letter that was sent to Colonel Moody when he was a prisoner of war during the Civil War. The one thing I did notice about almost all of the letters that he got sent while he was a prisoner of war is almost all of them sent money. This one had $10 in the envelope with it. So, two. Okay, and like Jonathan just told you guys, I have degrees from Northwestern State University of Louisiana and University of Texas. And my children are about to also be going to University of North Texas, so I'm happy about that. So let's start off with, what does an archivist do? I feel like there are 2 main areas of my work. First part is collection work, and the second part is publicity and outreach. You know, selection and acquisition is the first step. Maybe somebody brings a collection to you, or maybe you go to the collection and you look and see, is it worthy of keeping? Does it fit in our collection policy? You look at it, you make a decision, and then, you know, the acquisition. Sometimes people sell their collections, and if, you know, but most places don't have a lot of money to buy them. So most of the time they're given, but there's also an important part of that is signing a deed of gift so that the legal ownership transfers and the archivist the repository can, use the work and share it with people and reproduce it if they need to. So next comes appraisal, and appraisal for an archivist is not like what Jonathan does with the stamps. He puts a monetary value on them. An archivist doesn't do that. In fact, we are not trained to do that at all. Our appraisal is basically to see, is each piece of this worthy of keeping in the collection? So you look at it, does it have research value? Does it have, historical value? Because, you can't keep everything that comes in. And I'll show you some things in the pictures tonight, some things that may or may not end up in the collection, but still fun anyway. So appraisal is basically looking at the collection and see what fits in. So arrangement and description go together. And that's kind of what I'm doing now with the Moody collection. You write a finding aid. Well, first you start off with a processing plan. And a processing plan is a fluid document. It's sort of like an outline for a speech, but it's a very fluid document because you can't know everything that there is to know before you get into the boxes and do the collection. So you write the processing plan, and then you start dividing it up into series, large groups. And then under that, you can have as many sub-series as you need to have to describe the papers. For example, some of my larger series are Colonel Moody, W.L. Moody Jr., Mary, her siblings, their businesses. That's honestly, their stuff they have with their businesses is going to be just as much stuff as they have with their personal stuff. And then under that, like under Colonel, I'll have his correspondence or his photographs or his business, some of the stuff from his business. So series and sub-series, and you can even go further down than that. Sometimes you do, but depending on how much stuff is there. There's a lot in this collection. So next comes preservation. Now, preservation is a little bit different than conservation, but what I do is I put I take the document, I assess it, and I look and see, does it need to be put in maybe a clear plastic sleeve, but it definitely goes into archive safe folders and boxes. Anything that may be falling apart gets stabilized. I don't do conservation work. Conservation is a whole other area. It is a specialty of saving something, repairing something. Most archivists don't do that. And then lastly, more and more archivists are turning to digitization to make sure that things stay, permanent. The only thing you really have to think about with digitization is keeping abreast of the new technologies. CD-ROMs aren't happening anymore. And then we went to, other things. So, keeping up with what's the next thing and making sure that you're on top of it in time to migrate your data over to the new platform so it won't become, obsolete. Yeah. So the second part, publicity and outreach, which is what I'm doing tonight, talking to you guys, letting you know about the collection. Outreach can be as simple as having a booth at an event with, examples of probably copies, in my case, of what the collection has and just talking to people about it. Advocacy. I want to make sure that everyone is really aware of how important, saving your personal history is. Saving your family history is just as important as saving, national or worldwide history, because what does that comprise of? What does the national history comprise of? It comprises of families, local history. So that's what I advocate for. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Marketing. Marketing is basically, again, doing things like I'm doing tonight, telling people about the collection. In year 3 of this, I'm going to be going to some professional conferences, and I'll be telling other professionals so that when they have patrons come in and asking things about the Moody family, they can direct them to my collection. So reference services and access, I'm gonna group them together because they're very, very similar. Reference services would be, you came in with a question, maybe you come in person, maybe you call, maybe you send an email, maybe we have a chat set up. Rosenberg Library actually does have a reference chat you can use and ask a question. And then I will look into the collection and I'll give you some answers, maybe tell you what we have or don't have, what you could use or not use. So reference and access. Access is where, you look at the finding aid online, you see what you want to look at. And then I pull boxes and we have an appointment and you come and you look and you make your notes and you see if what we have is what you need for your research or your project or your information or whatever it is you're doing. And in my case, it's also going to include exhibits. On Thursday of this week, I'm going to be doing a short presentation at an exhibit opening in the Moody Mansion about the Moody women. And a lot of my artifacts are on display for that. They pulled from my collection. They pulled from Baylor. Baylor had some items that they pulled from. The Rosenberg Library in another collection and some things from the mansion. So if you get a chance, go by and see that Moody Women Collection exhibit. So before I ask you, do you have any questions? I'm going to tell you something. I did a little something for you all, and I hope you like it. Yeah. Each question slide is going to have a picture and a little blurb. They're all related. It's kind of like a mystery. I want you to look at them. I want you to read it. Tuck it away when you see the next one. And at the end, we're going to talk about how all these things are related, okay? All right, so does anyone have questions, Steve?
Not right now.
Okay, so I don't know if I mentioned it, but you guys can drop your questions into the chat. Steve is going to read them for me, okay?
Oh, can do that. Okay.
All right. I probably should have mentioned that.
Yeah.
All right, so now
well,
you know.
I have one question just to start. Are all of the documents from the Moody Mansion have been moved to the Rosenberg Library?
Not yet.
Okay.
They're still right where you went to see them.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
They're still there. You saw how many boxes.
Yeah.
So what they're doing right now is they're emptying out the vault at the Rosenberg Library into the Fox room for the next 3 months. They're going to dismantle all the shelving in that room, and they're going to install new shelving that you crank like at the doctor's office so that you can compact it. And at the point that we get a lot of that done and a lot of it processed, then we'll move it over there. I haven't been given a timeline for that, but for the near future, it's going to be at the annex. But you won't go there to view it. You'll go to the library, and I'll bring you the boxes you need.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All
right.
John would like to know how long you'll be working on the project.
Okay, for 3 years. It was a grant. It was initially funded for 1 year with the option of 2 years. And I got word last week that the Mary Moody Northern Endowment Board of Directors has voted for it to be all 3 years. So I will be there for 3 years. And after that, I'm not sure what, if someone else will take over the collection or if it'll just go into the Rosenberg Library archives and, I'll have done most of the work and they'll just need to pull it and, view it for people to view anyway. So 3 years. All right. No other questions? I'm going to move on.
There's another one still. Yeah.
Okay.
Chris Dilbert, will the philatelic material be a self-contained exhibit at some point?
That's a possibility. I haven't really worked with or spoken to Sean, my boss, but we have exhibits all the time at the library. And that could be something that we could possibly work on. So possibly. All right, so moving on, I'm going to give you a quick version of the Moody family history. Colonel was born in Virginia. He went to the University of Virginia and got a law degree. He came to Fairfield, Texas, where he married Farabee Bradley. Not long after that, son William Lewis was born. And he brought in his brothers from Virginia, and they started a mercantile store. And he started a law office. About that time, the Civil War is breaking out. Colonel volunteers to fight. He ends up being a prisoner of war. And, you know, spoiler alert, he made it out all right and came and moved on with his life and started more businesses. At that point, they're moving to Galveston to be closer to the shipping, right? I read a letter maybe last week. Colonel was talking to his brother, and they were talking about the cotton prices in Liverpool. They were shipping cotton all over the world. So the cotton prices, they were having to speculate what the prices would be when their cotton got over there to sell it. So he was in cotton factoring and banking. Oops, and I left a little bit of a typo there. Anyway, then Colonel had a son, you know, he had W.L. Jr. And W.L. went to the University of Texas for a while to study law. And for one reason or other, it didn't suit him. And so he came back home. And when he hit his 21st birthday, he joined his father in the business. They had a office in New York for a while where they were doing some business, and he would ride home, but he didn't like that much either. So he ended up coming back to Galveston, and he married Libby Rice Shern of Houston. And they had 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. And at that point, he's expanding his father's business. His father is a wealthy man, but W.L. Jr. took it to the next level, and he went like platinum. All of a sudden, he's getting hotels, ranches. He's got printing offices. He's got the Galveston Daily News. He's got another Galveston newspaper. He's got the insurance company that they still are running today, American National Insurance Company. And so he just absolutely just had a knack for business and loved doing it. He wrote in one of his letters, he wrote to his wife, you know, don't worry about me working so much. I absolutely love it. So he was in his element there. So out of his 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, the first child was a son. And at that point, most of the families took their assets and they passed it down to the first son. And in the case of W.L. Jr., his first son, for one reason or another, did not please him. So when he passed and Mary got $400 million in 50 corporations, W.L. III got a ranch paid for and $1. So then Mary was the one that he was grooming for the business. Mary married Edwin Clyde Mike Northern, who had come down for medical school at UTMB, and then decided that wasn't for him, and then he became a businessman. But they would go over after work, and W.L. Jr. would talk to Mary, and he would tell her how to run all these businesses. Well, come 1954, Mary lost her husband and her father within 7 weeks of each other. And all of a sudden, they were childless. So all of a sudden, what she has is a real large amount of money and a lot of responsibility. So all of a sudden she's the businesswoman. Her younger sister Libby married Clark Thompson, who became a U.S. representative, and her brother Shern passed away at a young age. I'm not sure what happened, but he was in his 30s. So that is the Moody family history in a nutshell. So some collection highlights for you. We've got over 2 centuries of papers and documents, and we've got Colonel's father, Jameson Moody, his records in Virginia from the mid 1700s. There's not a lot from that era, but we have some, and some pictures, and we have some, Colonel stuff. I've been working with Colonel's letters, and I'm at 1856 right now, and some of those documents are well preserved and some of them are falling apart. So I try not to touch them very much while I'm processing them. So what you see here is you see a cover. I'm going to use your terminology, a cover and a stamp there. And you see the Moody coat of arms. You see a postcard album with Mike and Mary, or Mary and Mike. I'll give you a hint, there's nothing in it. She just got the album. And then you'll see a picture of mature Mary. You saw early Mary on the other slide, early Mary and her husband Mike. And this is mature Mary. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about that necklace she has on, and I haven't been able to confirm it, but the story is the W.L. Jr. bought that necklace from Empress Carlotta in Mexico for his daughter. So that's the Carlotta necklace. So pretty impressive. Spoiler alert, it's not part of my collection. I don't have any jewelry, but and I don't really know what happened to it. I'm sure it got passed down. But so interesting story about the necklace. So I don't know if you guys have seen any of these, but we have a really nice selection of the Emil Bunges prints. Emil was a Galveston artist who did a lot of pen and ink. That was his thing. Of course, he did other kinds of work, but that's what he did. And so this set was released after his death in the mid 70s, and what we have is really in really good condition. So I pulled a few of them for you. This is, you may recognize the Texas Heroes Monument. If you've been to Galveston, I know most of you have. You've seen it, it's still there, it's still in great shape, but this is the Texas Hero Monuments commissioned by Henry Rosenberg, the same guy that left the money for the library. And it was to honor the heroes of the Texas Revolution. So that is the monument through the Sealy Mansion gates. So you may not have heard it called the Willis Moody Mansion, but that is its proper name. It was designed by William Tyndall for Narcissa Willis. So the story with Narcissa was her husband was making a lot of money, and her niece was actually the owner of the Sealy Mansion. And this is what I've been told. And she would ask her husband for, a nice house, a mansion. And he would tell her, no, I'm not building a mansion. We've got a nice house here. I'm not spending money on it. So let me tell you, she waited until he died and took his money and had the mansion built. Now, you might say that's a smooth move, but in reality, she lived one more year before she passed away. So I don't know exactly if she got the desired results from that or not. Her daughter, who lived in New York City at the time, put it up for sale. There were a lot of bids on it. Then comes the 1900 storm. Most everybody withdrew their bids, and WL picked it up for $20,000 when it was appraised at $100,000.
Wow.
So he, like I said, had a knack for business. So the Houston Rocket, I had to do a little research on this one. But the Galveston Electric Company had these trolleys that were run by electric power, the electric power above. So this one was named the Houston Rocket because it went back and forth from Galveston to Houston. So Nicholas Clayton, I don't know if you've heard his name or not, but he was at one time the premier architect in Galveston, and he's responsible for a lot of these buildings you see, and the Bishop's Palace, that mansion as well. But this building was built for the Galveston News, and one of the first, they say, that was solely designed for a newspaper plant. It is actually still standing today. 2108 Mechanic Street is where it's at. So yeah. So again, this is probably something you've seen. Old Red, also known as the Asheville Smith Building, is UTMB's first building. It was their classroom and laboratory building. So it's been there for a very long time. And then when Mary Moody Northern was older, she donated towards, and I don't have a dollar amount, but she donated towards the refurbishment of this building. I will say this, I have confirmed that the A&M Galveston Maritime Program, she dropped $1 million to get that one started. So this was the kind of woman that could bat an eye and drop $1 million. So I wouldn't know what that feels like. All right, Jonathan's going to help me out with this section. Do you want me to give you control for a minute, or do you just want to tell me when to move?
I have my microphone on. This is a typical postal station area cover, approximately the 1920s. It's unused, and we did find some material like that in the archives. It's a relatively common cover, and it was pre-printed with the address.
Okay. Right.
1961, Ketchikan, Alaska, airmail. So it's a 7-cent airmail rate from Alaska down to the American National Insurance Company. There's a lot of mail that went to Galveston because the American National Insurance Company, I think that was their headquarters. And this particular one went to Mrs. Mary Moody Northern. It has a machine cancel, a slogan machine cancel from that time period. It's 1 ounce rate.
Okay.
Narrows, Virginia. Again, the same correspondence to the Northern family. 3-cent Prexy in cancel, 1 cent rate for the time.
Jonathan, do most of these covers have contents?
Off and on. The business covers like this one, I mean, it may, it's to a couple, and a lot of them went directly to Miss Mary Northern, but it was, if they're, I've seen a few thousand covers going to the American National Insurance Company in Galveston as part of this collection and some others, because a lot of it comes on the philatelic market. And the answer is, if it's straight business mail, there's no contents at all. They took the contents out, it went into a file, or they weren't on it, and then the covers got put aside. Then eventually they ended up in the archives, and some ended up on the philatelic market.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on.
And same thing here. This is like the first one, Melinda, that you showed, which was the 2-cent rate. This is when postage went to 3 cents with the indicia for a postal stationery envelope And again, this is pre-printed, and most likely they were doing business with this company from Galveston over to Boston, and they had a number of these envelopes that were already pre-addressed.
And I now have a number of them, but I had to show this one, Jonathan, because it's purple.
Yeah, okay. Again, business mail, American National Insurance Company. This is like Melinda, like the other one you just showed that had the 3-cent stamp. So there's 3 1-cent stamps of the Prexy issue used locally, Galveston. And it has a machine cancel, it's a slogan cancel. And this is during World War II. And you see the slogan is Give to the Red Cross War Fund. And it appears, it's hard to tell, but looks like these stamps, at least the pair on the left side, came from a booklet with that straight edge there on the left.
Yeah. All right.
And this is one we saw a lot like this that had water damage. This stamp, part of the national defense, 2-cent rate, local 2-cent rate within Galveston. You see was going a very simple address to, I guess that's the Moody Mesh address, right? 2902.
That was Mary and Mike's address. They lived in a separate home. So that's not the mansion.
Oh, okay. And again, during the war, with the machine cancel used locally.
What hit me as interesting is it just says city.
Right.
So
And that's
they know.
And that's how they got the 2-cent rate instead of 3-cent. They may have deposited this right at the post office.
And here we go.
And there's your 2-cent rate. Hard to see the date. Someone's on vacation, sending a postcard from Yosemite National Park.
1952.
And okay, and it has a Yosemite National Park being canceled. That's pretty cool. Same
Yes,
address, 2902 Broadway.
Yeah. So yeah, it was August 28th,
And then it was
1952.
forwarded. See, then it was forwarded. You see that line through the address, and at the bottom, ANI, American National Insurance Company. So those 2 addresses were probably connected. People at the post office connected those 2 and knew where those people were.
Okay, and I believe this is the last one.
Oh, what's this one? Oh, Moody Hall in VMI, Lexington, Virginia. And no postmark, but we have, looks like it was a reunion of some sort with people signing and the year that they graduated.
Well, I can give you a little bit of background on that.
Yeah.
Mary's father, W.L. Jr., went to the Virginia Military Institute for his elementary school and middle school years. I don't know if it was a high school or not. It may have been, but because of that, she dropped enough money to build an entire building with his name on it. So that's why she was on their board of directors, and she was invited to everything, even though the military school was, obviously a boys' school. But so that's the background behind that, and it looks like it was mailed, but like you said, there's no cancellation. So I thought that was pretty unique.
Yeah, nice piece.
All right, well, I believe that is the last one. Yes. So thank you, Jonathan. I called him earlier today and said, I don't know what I could say about these stamps that these people don't already know. So help me out. And I appreciate it. So do we have any questions?
I have one, but I think you've answered it already. Did you find any stampless covers in the archives from the days of the Republic of Texas?
Ooh, Jonathan, I'm gonna defer to
Um,
you.
There were letters dated during the Republic of Texas time period, but we didn't. But they were just letters only. I didn't find any folded letter sheets or anything that would look like a cover or a folded letter sheet. It was just the letter itself, or it was a business invoice or something like that. But there are documents in there that are that were produced during the Republic of Texas time frame.
Okay.
Hey,
I have a question, Melinda. I went to SMU where the sports arena is Moody Coliseum. And I think there's a Moody Methodist Church in Galveston also. So I've always wondered if the Moody family was active in the Methodist Church or if they just gave money to a bunch of different schools.
so yes and yes. The Moody Methodist Church actually came, if you'll recall, I said W.L. Jr. married Libby Rice Sharon. And she was named after whoever it was, God forgive me, whoever it was that started the Rice University, native Louisianian. I don't know everything about Texas history.
It's William Marsh.
But
Yeah.
she was named after that, and she had money. She had enough money that when she died, she gave it to the Methodist Church. And to this day, they have a daycare, they have a gym, they have a walking track, indoor air-conditioned walking track. She left a large sum. So WL's wife had her own money, and that's where it went. As far as the buildings for the schools, yes. She had her, one of her focuses with her foundation was education. And so there's a Moody Amphitheater at one college, I believe it might be University of Houston, don't hold me to that. But there are Moody buildings all over the state of Texas and in Virginia, because that's where her people were from.
Okay, well, thank you.
Melinda,
Yes.
since the covers do not have, at least all of the business covers do not have any contents, how will those, do you have any idea how those will be handled by the library?
Well, I'm going to just put them in a folder and mark them as, this is this. And I'll probably, in that case, I won't just put one in a folder. I'll put, 8 or 10 in a folder and say, these are covers. This were from, this time period, and they'll be together. But yes, they'll be kept. And like Jonathan mentioned, we most likely will have at least part of that correspondence in another section, because it would have stayed in the businesses and then came back to us later. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hope you had a little bit of time to look at the pen and ink drawing here, and let's move forward. So, miscellaneous items found in the stacks. I want you to look carefully at this bar of soap. That's the front and the back. It's just one. But octagon toilet soap, because, toiletries. And if you look on the back, you can see Colgate Palmolive. They're still in business. And if you look closely, you can see the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. We still have those. So I thought that was interesting. And plus, you don't expect to open up a box of documents and find soap. So this I thought was extremely interesting. These are bound editions of Harper's Weekly. If you notice the years, they're from the Civil War years. This is literally 1 year of that magazine bound into leather editions, and they're in excellent shape. So the pages are a little weak because it was, magazine, newsprint type stuff, but for the age they're in excellent condition. And next to it, the Wildflowers of the United States, if you're into that. So, State of Texas. This is a land grant signed by Sam Houston. I don't have the exact date because it's a little, as you can see, it's a lot faded. But this is one of those things, if you look at the bottom, you can see Sam Houston's signature. So this is one of those things where we love to look at it, but because it's fading, that may be one of the things we digitize and then just look at the digitization, because a lot of light and exposure will make it fade even more. But interesting to have. So Mary loved her Cadillacs. This one, I have found several large packets of Cadillac, the kind of advertisements you get from the dealership when you're looking to buy, or they're mailing you when they want you to buy. I originally thought they were owner's manuals, but she has some from 59, 60, and 61. And if you look at that card there, Mary wrote, "I bought 1961 Fleetwood." So I thought that was a pretty neat thing to say. We buy cars all the time. I don't write it down, but Mary was absolutely wonderful at writing things down. Almost all of these pictures have her handwriting on the back saying who's in the photo, where they were, what they were doing, gives a date. It was just amazing how she had the forethought to write all of this down. It's certainly making my job a lot easier. So, pardon. We have several of the Saturday Evening Post. We had more, but I'm told before I was hired on that the endowment sent some of it to the printing museum in Houston. But I still have 2 or 3 boxes of Saturday Evening Post. This one, I have some from the earlier 1900s, but this one is from 1950. And what got me was, there's the Galveston stuff, but convicts and skirts, the truth about a women's prison. I thought, now, there's a story there if there ever was. Maybe if I do a follow-up, I'll give you a rundown on the story. So here's another magazine, St. Nicholas Illustrated Magazine for Boys and Girls. I looked through it now. It does say for boys and girls, but I'm gonna tell you, I flipped through it. It does look heavily slanted towards the boys. So just thought I'd say that. But opened up, there's a story called The Cruise of the Half Moon. So this was the type of magazine that Mary would have received as a child. She would have been about 12-ish at this point. So, little background here. We have a box of sheet music. We have some record albums. I pulled this one for one reason. This was No No Nanette. It was a movie and a Broadway play. And Frances Lee of Fort Worth was my daughter's first tap dance teacher. Frances Lee of Fort Worth was also Carrie Fisher's tap dance teacher. Carrie Fisher was in this play with Frances Lee and her husband and her mother, Debbie Reynolds. And so I'm assuming Debbie thought Carrie needed a little touch up with her tap dancing. And so my daughter and Carrie Fisher had the same tap dance teacher. And so that's why I pulled this one for you. So I pulled this one simply for that title. Don't bring me posies, it's shoesies that I need. And I thought, now there's a love song for the ages.
It says It says arrangement for the ukulele on
And
top.
I don't know if Mary played the ukulele. I don't know. Pardon. I don't know if any of them did, but it's an interesting piece of history there. So the Moody family was interacting with almost all of the Texas governors. And I'm sure there are many more of these invitations in other boxes, but I found these two. Invitations to inaugural balls in 1874 and 1949. And for the pleasure of your company, with ladies requested on the one from 1874. So they were being pretty specific that they wanted both men and women to attend. And I thought, well, that's an interesting way to put it, but there was no confusion there. And so that was probably two different generations of the Moody family. The earlier would have been addressed to the colonel, and you see the ball ticket there. And the other one was probably W.L. Jr. So there were some famous people in the lives of the Moody's. Here you're going to see Mary with a movie star. You're going to see Mary with a former first lady. At the bottom, you're going to see the signature of Governor Richard Koch. And the top is going to be a calling card from a Rockefeller. Here is, I have the book, Heart to Heart Appeals by William Jennings Bryan, and the inscription to my dear friend and hunting companion, Colonel W.L. Moody, with the good wishes of William Jennings Bryan. Now, he wasn't wrong with that. We have absolutely a lot of pictures of William Jennings Bryan. He was in and out of their life. They hunted together. They went on, boats and fished, and he even signed a book and gave the book to the children. So that was a close friendship with those two. And they went to, I can't remember where it was, but they went to the nominating convention when he was running for president. So here's a letter from former Governor Richard Koch to the colonel. This one is basically saying, I'm going to come. You invited me to come fishing, and I'm going to come. I'm busy. My health is declining, but I popped at the top, your friend truly, Richard Koch. So that's not something you would put to someone that was just a casual acquaintance. Another from Richard Koch. Now you see this one is in bad shape. The first one was in pretty good shape, but this one is more of, it looks like a mimeograph, but it's also signed by him. But this one, if you'll look at the date, and I did some research on this, this was 1 year before he passed away, and he was talking about how he was frail and he wasn't able to move around, but he was still going to come fishing. He was still going to come down to Galveston and go fishing. And but he was talking about how he was really, his health was declining. So, whether or not he made it down before he passed, I don't know. Maybe I'll figure that out one day. But I thought it was an interesting letter.
Yeah.
So I have this book, Lady Bird Johnson, A White House Diary, and this is the entitled the dedication here to Mary Moody Northern, with my understanding appreciation of the many good works of your hand, Lady Bird Johnson, December 6, 1970. So that was, again, a very personal inscription from a very prominent person. So I don't know if it was a friendship there or if the money was talking, but she got a lot of attention and a picture. I've done a lot of looking up of pictures of Lady Bird Johnson. I've noticed a theme of yellow. She wore a lot of yellow dresses, so that must have been her color. So from the National City Bank of New York, 1953, Office of the President, James S. Rockefeller. I consider myself indeed fortunate to be able to believe I am one of your friends. Now that is saying something. Because we've all heard of the Rockefellers and how rich they were, but and maybe other people have, but before I knew about Galveston and the Moody's, I hadn't really heard of it. But at his death, W.L. Moody was listed in Fortune magazine as one of the top 10 richest people in the United States. They just didn't advertise it or announce it like the others. A lot of people, it's sort of a quiet multimillionaire. So the calling card says, "Who does this look like?" And Mary had written on the back of the card that there was a present in there. It was a tile with a hunter and blind feeding ducks. So interesting. Happy New Year, you're kissing kin woman. I'm at a loss for that, but maybe they had their own nicknames going on. Anyway, it looks like a really close friendship between the two families. All right, here's the Duke, John Wayne. So now I want you to look at Mary's eyes. That is a fangirl look. I'm not going to lie to you. She was having a moment there, but she had her picture with John Wayne, and I'll tell you how that came about. There's a story here. And here's part of it. Richard Boone, Mary Moody Northern, and Peggy Moody. Now this is at what they called a Howdy Brunch. John Wayne did the movie The Alamo. It came out in 1960. You may or may not know it was filmed entirely in Texas. You may or may not know that the reason it was filmed entirely in Texas because Mary Moody Northern put up a lot of money, and that was her condition. Now, were there other people putting up money? I'm sure there were. But this was sort of a vanity project for John Wayne. He starred in it and he directed, and he was having trouble getting all the money. So I don't know how the two crossed paths, but Mary Moody was part of the reason that was the film was made and that it was made in Texas. So this is what at a Howdy Brunch for the press at the premiere, and there was a premiere in Texas. Okay, quick questions and another picture.
John had a question from earlier. Is it part of your job to ultimately make a thorough abstract of the contents of the collection?
Yes. So what will happen is in fact, it took me several months. I have made an inventory. I actually went through twice to get it. So I have a listing of everything in the all the boxes. Now, the things in the boxes will be, inventoried and put together, but I may not write down on this finding aid every single letter, every single business. It may be Colonel's correspondence from 1865 and WL's business records from 1922 or 25 or whatever. So yes, but there won't be an exhaustive list. There's close to 1.5 million individual items. They all won't be written down. They'll be grouped. Any other questions?
None in the chat.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna move in. Okay, so I told you about the Alamo movie. I actually have some professional photos from the movie set. They were used for promotional things, but this was in the Sheehan Ranch near Brackettville, Texas, filmed in the fall of 1959. This was the replica they built for that movie. Now, I did read some research that they had left that open for a good long while for people to come and visit and see the sets. But somewhere around the early aughts, they closed it down. I don't know if the buildings are still there or not, but it was there for a good long time. So just a scene from the movie shooting. It looks like a battle scene, and I'm not going to give you much commentary on this. I'll just let you look at it. So we saw Richard Boone earlier. Right now we have Mary, W.L. Moody IV, and Richard Boone. W.L. IV, whose nickname was Billy, was actually in the movie as one of General Sam Houston's officers. So Mary not only got to go to the premiere, she got to come and actually watch some of the shooting. And there's some excellent photographs from it. There's actually an entire document box, about 6 inches and a lot of it is pictures from that movie. I literally just had to pick a few. Oh, wrong mouse. All right. So here's another still from the movie. Richard Widmark as Jim Bowie, Lawrence Harvey as Colonel William Barrett Travis, and John Wayne as Colonel David Crockett. So interesting coonskin hat there. So now we've come to the part where you get to tell me if you know, or I'll tell you if you don't, how these things are related. We have a letter from Ronald Thomason, 1974. You can read some of it, I'm sure. Included with that letter was 2 different pieces of his artwork. And at one time he was the state artist of Texas. I'm not sure what that title means, but I read it. And this is a pen and ink drawing of old Weatherford College, back when Weatherford College was just one building. And I've been told that it's the 2nd oldest junior college in the state of Texas. Now, I haven't verified that, but it was, 1850-ish when it was built. And what you see now on the campus of Weatherford College is, if you look carefully, that's the arch from the original building. It's still there. I know this because, I have the picture, but my daughter's also currently going to Weatherford College. And so when she came to visit me in the archives, I showed her the pictures. And so why did I show you this? This is an example of how 2 pieces of paper or 3 pieces of paper in a box on a shelf in Galveston actually correlate and relate to a real world, artifact. There's a picture of it, and then it's still there. So I thought that was interesting, and I guess I told you instead of letting you guess. But anyway, did anyone guess? No. Maybe I should give more hints. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. Anyway, there's your mystery solved. So before I get to the part you're really waiting for, I'm going to just do a little bit of soapbox here. If you haven't thought about it, think about your family history. Talk to people, get your family tree going. Of course, all of us can remember our grandparents, our cousins, but how far can you go back with your memory? Maybe you can ask your relatives, the ones that are still with us, and get your family tree or your family timeline and start pulling your documents together. And oral history interviews are really super important. And maybe in your family, you aren't the one, interviewing people. Maybe you're the one being interviewed, but talk to the people who can just tell you what their life was like, and that's what you want to ask when you do an oral history interview. Just tell me what your life was like growing up. What did you go through? What was your day-to-day life? Where did you go to school? What, did you get to go to school? My grandparents, on my father's side, my grandfather finished the 4th grade and my grandmother finished the 7th grade. So maybe they can tell you that they didn't go to school. Anyway, and digitize what you can, go ahead and in any scanner. And if you don't have one, most libraries have one. The Rosenberg Library has a scanner a couple scanners, you can come and you can digitize your photo. So I'm sure other libraries do as well. But yeah, just start gathering it up. And bonus tip, I know there's 3 things there. Bonus tip, date everything. And I know you're thinking, I know when I wrote that letter, but 2 generations down won't. Date everything you do. So letters, journals, receipts, just everything. So that's my tip. So here's a picture. Jonathan has seen this of what the archives look like. This is a current condition. This is pre-processed. So what is happening? What happens next? So right now I'm processing. I've written a processing plan, and I'm preserving it. Everything's getting new folders and new boxes. And the digitization will start next year, probably next February. So that's when it will start. And we will be, I will be getting us an assistant to help with that. And we will be hitting the high points. I'm open for suggestions. If anybody, if you saw anything tonight, you want to make sure it gets digitized, you can send me an email. But that will be a decision I'll have to make, what gets digitized, because obviously not all 1.5 million pieces will be. So that's what's happening now. And Jonathan had wanted to know who owns the records. Right now, the Rosenberg Library and the Galveston and Texas History Center are the owners because of the deed of gift. And it's, the collection has, God willing, has found its final home. It'll stay there. So it'll be there preserved and, accessible for generations to come. So where is the collection now? It is on the campus of the Mary Moody Northern Endowment. It's not actually in the mansion. I don't go to work every day at a mansion. I go to work next door to a mansion, but it's still on the property. So the archives is located in one of the outlying buildings on that campus. It will be moved to the library at some point, but again, I'm usually the last to know on these things, so I haven't been given a timeline on when it's going to go, but it's going to be a big deal because of how big the collection is. So this is the question we're all waiting for. So when can you see the collection? Well, not just yet. Working on processing it, and it's not quite ready to be looked at, but I'm not going to make you wait a year just till I finish the entire collection, because you guys are so interested and you're such a great group and a great audience. I'm going to open it up a little at a time. When I finish the kernel stuff, I'm going to be on the phone to Jonathan and I'm going to say, hey, this part is ready. And you guys can come, call and come down and see it. And then when I get another section done, I'll do the same thing. Right now, another win, I'm looking probably the end of August, September-ish, having some stuff ready for you. But right now, and Jonathan can tell you this, most of those things that I'm doing right now are kind of fragile. And so I want to make sure that they're very much secure and safe before we start letting people see it. But very soon, and you're going to be the first. So this is where you're going to come. This is actually on the 4th floor of the Rosenberg Library, the Galveston and Texas History Center. And there's a lot you can see other than the Moody collection. There's a Kempner collection, and I haven't seen it, but there's a lot of things, an entire vault full of things. They also have some artifacts. There's a museum. Right now we have an exhibition of the 1900 storm. The large part of the 4th floor has been under construction, remodeling. They had found the 4th floor, of an over 100-year-old building, not stable enough to hold all of the display cases for the museum. They had actually found the floor is made of horsehair plaster. So they're giving it an entire, the floor is being completely redone, the lighting's being completely redone. That's going to open up sometimes this summer. And then when we hire a museum curator, we're going to have all that space be museum exhibits. So we've got the archives and we've got museum artifacts. So there's a lot to see. And there's very wonderfully, very rare, quite expensive art paintings all over the walls of that entire library on every floor, especially the second floor gallery. There's some magnificent paintings and works of art you can just see just by walking around. It is the most amazing library ever. So, and I'm saying that I am a little biased though. So I'm not going to go over this. These are general to every archive, repository, every place. And if you want to see, this is a quick view, but if you want to see, the exact reading room regulations, there's a link down there. I know you can't click on it, but it's still, pretty simple. Galveston, Texas History Center, about reading room regulations. And you can go to the website and find it pretty quickly, but just something to keep in mind. So before I end, I just want to tell you, if you haven't, go see the Moody Mansion. If you like what you've seen tonight, if you like talking about the documents, the artifacts, the things, this is the place where most of those artifacts and documents were created. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So this actually, walking through the mansion, actually gives you a sense of the people who live there, what their life was like, and it is absolutely amazing experience. And I will say this, the pictures on the internet do not do it justice. There's a sort of a feeling that you get when you go inside and you just get surrounded by all of the opulence and the attention to detail, and really no expense was spared. And this inside of this house has not been done just once, it's been done twice, because in 1983, the hurricane, was it Carla? I can't remember. The 1983 hurricane did it in, not the structure, but the interiors. So all of this has been reproduced, and they did it from pictures from my archives. So pretty amazing. So yeah, if you like what you see, go to the mansion. That's it'll give you the rest of the story. And yes, that's a Paul Harvey reference. So
I think the 1983 hurricane was Alicia.
okay, well, okay, that was the one that did it in. No, not the structure. The structure was sound, but the interior was just wrecked. It took 5 or 6 years to get it back to normal. So thank you for letting me present.
Thank you,
I've
Melinda.
had a
Yeah.
wonderful time. I would be happy to talk to any of you about the collection if you have any more questions. Just if you ring the archives, if you ring the number down there, just let it ring, because sometimes I'm all the way at the back and I have to run to my desk. Yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, phone, email. There's my contact information, and thank you very much. I've enjoyed this.
Thank you.
It was awesome. We really appreciate you coming.
You bet.
Right, so I'm going
There were a
to,
couple of questions at the very end. Do you have time to answer, Melinda?
oh, sure.
So we had one from Chris, and was Jonathan able to review all of the philatelic material, or is there more to be revealed?
So there's a question for you. Now, I will say this. I have found that the first half of this collection, back 30 years ago, they hired a conservator team and an archivist, and a lot of it was gone through. But about midway, we get to the point where I call shoving stuff in boxes. No, you can put another word there if you want to, But it goes from very carefully curated and organized to, and the reason for that is, after the hurricane, the employees of the Mary Moody Northern Endowment and Mary Moody Northern herself, they just packed up boxes, the employees did. And so that's what ended up first at St. Patrick's in Galveston, and then when the annex was built over there. So it was all that way at first, and then the staff got through about half of it. So to answer that for the long way around is there's probably more, because I open up boxes and find bars of soap. I open up boxes and find drugstore bottles that still have fluid in them. Probably not going to keep that one, but there's boxes where there's just random stuff. So there's probably more there.
Thank you.
And the last question was, some of the material has water stains. Does the Rosenberg have special plans to protect the collection from future hurricanes?
So our vault is pretty secure. The stuff that happened, I'm going to speculate that it happened while it was still in Mary's care. She had boxes. She has a ballroom in the mansion, and towards the end of her life, they said that the boxes were just stacked from floor to ceiling in the ballroom. So I'm assuming, again, an assumption that some of the water damage happened there. Now that it's in the archives, it's pretty secure there. You know, there are things we do. We have procedures when bad weather's coming. We have emergency things. You know, we put plastic over each shelf. We, you know, make sure that it's tied down, it's secure. You know, so every precaution is being taken to make sure, and the vault is even more secure than where my stuff is right now, but to make sure that there's not any more. But of course, you know, there's no 100% guarantee.
All right. Well, that was it on the chat.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, then I'm gonna turn it back to whoever is Steve, Jonathan.
Yes, thank you very much. This was a wonderful presentation, and we enjoyed it very much, very informative, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of members of our club as our society, as time moves on, that will be contacting you with more requests or details about the archives. Thank you again.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions in the meantime.
Thank you.